Nice to see everybody again. It's good to be back here. And as always, I haven't prepared for the talk, so it's always a bit nerving what's going to come out of my mind. And that was interesting. I was just, I was a little bit of hesitant, like, what should I hope mine is going to serve something. So I just look at the BSWA YouTube channel, our teacher, definitely my teacher, Ajahn Brahm, because he just gave his first talk after the Vasa in our city center in Perth, and he reminded everybody in the beginning of the talk, he reminded of everybody that please go and look at his first talk when he gave the first talk, because he's been giving talks almost 40 years now, even Nolamara, that go and look at his early talks, how bad his talks were. He said people used to walk out of his talks, and yeah, it's not nice when you're giving a talk and people start walking out. I did this one funeral one time, and there were like I think I started with 5 people in the funeral, and at the end I looked and there was only 3 left, and that included the corpse. So at least the dead person didn't get out, but it was pretty embarrassing. It's slightly difficult to sometimes, if the mind doesn't want to engage, and especially when you're starting. So, but now it's the same thing for me. I remember last week we were going back to, 2 weeks ago we were going back to Newbury, and they were driving me, and the person in the car reminded me of my first talk. He said that he was really confused at the end. What on earth was he talking about? And he said, these days I'm a bit better. So I was like, that was nice. But anyhow, so I came here to sit around before the talk, and it was nice. It's such a nice atmosphere, even just to sit here, because sometimes we do this kind of thing where we tell people to meditate, and when you meditate, everybody gets a bit tense. It's interesting, like the meditation. It's this kind of like, I'm meditating now. I need to do something. And when you just come here and we're just sitting quietly, it's very nice, because we don't really think we're doing anything. We're just relaxing here. And it's a really nice atmosphere, because even if people walking outside the window, or they're going to the toilets and they're talking to each other, it somehow doesn't disturb your mind, because you're not really meditating. You're just relaxing. And it's interesting, that's what meditation should be. You shouldn't be so distracted about it. You're not so worried about it. It was like somebody walked by and talked. But if this was a meditation day and somebody went to the toilet and they were talking to each other loudly, you would get angry at them, because this should be a quiet space. So we get angry. We're like, oh, I'm protecting the space. But whereas you just came here, I'm just waiting for the talk to start. And you're just sitting quietly, and you're not so preoccupied with that. So it's interesting. It's such a beautiful space here to sit, even before the talk, and we're just waiting. We're not doing anything. So it is quite nice that's what actually meditation should be, and that's our teacher Ajahn Brahm always says, that meditation is just you're not doing anything. But soon as we tell people we start meditating, everybody just somehow gets a bit rigid about it. But anyways, that what happened. So I was just sitting here. I was just waiting something to come up my mind, and I said, well, look, if nothing else, let's talk about anicca today. Anicca it's a good topic. And does anybody know what's a good translation for anicca? What would be a good translation for anicca? We cannot just talk Pali here, so we better make up some good translation. What's anicca? Huh? Not permanent, right? Yeah, Savitri that's a very, very scholastic, almost not permanent. Yeah, impermanent or not permanent or insubstantial. Wow, that's even fancier word. Now I know who was good at school. Yeah. Anything else? unreliable. I like unreliable. Yeah, that's obviously coming from Ajahn Brahm. But impermanence or unreliable. Impermanence it's one of those things where it's very commonly translated impermanence. But like I said, it sounds a bit scholastic. Everything is impermanent. It doesn't have that kind of oomph. It doesn't have that friction. That kind of like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, everything is impermanent. But everything is always constantly changing. Anicca, Anicca is like permanent, fixed, not changing. That would be, if other religions would talk about something like that, that would be a god, or heaven would be that kind of thing. It was like it's reliably happy, not changing. It's fixed, permanent. But if you look anywhere in the universe, let's start from the farthest universe. We look at the Milky Way, what we have, and the universe as at large. Can you see anywhere in the universe, when you go to the edges of the space, can you see anything which is never changing, which is permanently, reliably always there, never changing? Do you see anything? Can you tell me what's permanently, reliably always there, never changing? We don't see anything like that, right? Even if you go to the different solar systems where there's like everything is always changing, right? You see solar systems coming and going, and they get sucked by the black into these voids, and then things happen, and then they're always moving apart. The big crunch comes, and then the Big Bang happens, and all these things. And even these things have been, whether these are the right words, but in the Buddhism we call them kalpas, where things come and go, whether it's just they dissolve, they just go so far apart that everything disappears, or they come into one big space, one small space, and then everything crunches together, and then there's a Big Bang again. But there seems to be that they are talking about these universes coming and going in Buddhism. So there's nothing outside of the universes everywhere which is never changing, right? We agree with that. We cannot see anything like that. Even in our little solar system, if we look our Milky Way and we're coming into our solar system, our sun, moon, the globe itself where we're living, do we see even the sun? We know it's expanding, and once it starts it's coming to an end. What's going to happen to the sun? It starts expanding and expanding. Right? They say it's going to go about the 7 times what it is now, and then it's going to be devouring the earth and the moon and everything around it. And so the sun is not. Obviously, it's quite reliably there now, but it is not permanent. It is not reliably always there. And the same we can see, obviously we have a lot of news where you can see this beautiful blue dot in the space, what we call our planet, the Earth. Can we see that everything is constantly, reliably, never changing here? Well, no. You just have to look at the news, right? It is quite stressful because we are here. This is our planet, the only place we know, which is ours, where we are as humans. Global change, the earth is warming. Last few months we've been getting news from Europe where the Gulf Stream is now weakening, and they think it's gonna change, and it's not gonna be there. It is distressing to see how we as humans we change the globe, and because of that we change around it. There's dryness, there's a drought around some places of the earth, and some people have to be moving, whether it's Europe or Australia or United States. They're going from the places what they knew they were born, and that's what they know they were their home. But what's gonna keep us not becoming like that in 100 years? what happens when Australia becomes this continent of droughts? We are going to be the boat people in the future. Maybe not our lifetime, but the next generation, who knows? It is not out of question that it can happen. And we are going to Indonesia, and they are going to be like, hold on, you Aussies, you stay where you came from. We cannot accept you here. So even the earth, where we live, we can see that nowhere in this blue planet, where we call home, is not reliably always there. It's the same thing. It's anicca. It's not reliable, never changing, always there. It is not. We cannot see anything outside of in this world to be reliable. Even if we look our own little world, where the world sort of where we live in our families, can we say it's reliably always the way it is now? We can see, especially the longer you live, we see our families changing. We starting as a young people, babies and young people, and we have our families, and the families grow, and then people start dropping out. We become, eventually we lose the grandparents, and then we lose the parents, and then we start losing ourselves, so to speak. We lose our health. Sometimes we lose our wealth. What is reliable in your own body? Is there anything which you can see which is reliably always there in your own body? There's nothing which is like this where I can trust. I can trust it that this is always going to serve my purpose. And that's the interesting thing about the body, is where it is, because it's constantly changing, aging. The same with sickness. It's like even with the sicknesses, we cannot reliably say that I'm not going to be sick. Everybody gets always, at some point, sick. The sicknesses come and go, and there's health is just one phase, and then something else happens. So anicca goes again, it's the same thing with your own body. And interesting thing about this unreliable, ever-changing thing, then you can see when you look your body through that lens, you can see that because of that, you cannot say, this is mine, this belongs to me. And that ties into the second basic tenet of Buddhism, when there is no self. You cannot see that, because your body would be yours if you could somehow control it, if it was reliably, permanently there. And the same thing you can then say about your own mind. Can you say there's on your own mind, there's something permanently, reliably always there? Is your mind always even? Or is it sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's angry, sometimes it's depressed, sometimes it's whatever your mind state is? You can see that your own mind is the same. It's never perfectly reliable, never changing. It applies to our mind as well. And that's why we can see that the idea of anicca applies to all of us. And that ties into the fact of that in Buddhism, because there is no such a thing as a mind which is by itself an entity. It is just the ever-changing phenomena. That's why we cannot have Buddhism, the idea of soul. It just doesn't match. You cannot make it work with the Buddhist concept of anicca, unreliable, not being there, always ever changing. If we would have a mind which is always there, we would call it the soul, perhaps. Soul would be de facto a thing which is never changing, always reliably there. Whereas our mind, it is just dependent of the outside factors. So it is quite nice to start seeing that this, because of this unreliable nature of life, or ever-changing nature of everything around us and our minds and our bodies, where we should then find a security. Where do we find a solid ground? Because if we don't have anything to stand on, if we become a thing where when Buddhism or Dhamma becomes this doubting, we can doubt everything. We cannot find refuge in. We could say that there is no refuge anywhere. It becomes a really depressing place. It becomes this kind of like, well, I can't find a solid ground anywhere. And that's why sometimes I live with like Ajahn Sujato, and he's a very good at looking things from different perspectives. And he's a very good of whatever you say, you made an argument. He's a very good and quick about counter-arguing. And it was really maddening at me in the beginning as a young monk, because it's almost like you feel like, there's no solid ground anywhere. Like no matter how I try to look at Buddhism or the Dhamma, however you want to call it, it felt like there was no solid ground anywhere in the Buddhism. But there is. We have in Buddhism, we just did this, we go to the refuge of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. We have to have that is the refuge. Even though we're not perhaps a religion per se, we don't worship Buddha as a god. And that's what's one of the big arguments for other religions, is that, well, the Buddha was just a normal person. And for us, that is the great thing. He was just a normal person like we are. There is no anything special about the Buddha. He was not a son of God. He was not a God himself. There was no divine intervention anywhere here. It is just a path which we do follow, and the path becomes the refuge. The path is the meaning of life. It is actually quite deep. You might not realize that, but whatever you're looking for a meaning in life, the path is the meaning. There is no. I was just talking with Ajahn Sadhguru last night, and we were throwing up back and forth about ideas about what is the meaning on anything, because I've been struggling recently. I always try to be quite honest about my own struggles, because I think you can relate to that. I've been struggling recently with this massive busyness on the building work, still going, getting close. I've been saying this for 2 years, and now it's really, I feel it's getting close. By the way, if you don't know, we're building a retreat center. So the retreat center is getting close. So with painters have been booked and everything. I could tell you all kind of details that, So I've been struggling with it, with the busyness. What is the meaning of this thing I'm doing? I wake up in the morning, I put a high-vis jacket on, I put the safety boots on, and I go and open the gates. I go on the building site. Is that a job of a monk? Am I supposed to be doing that? Why on earth do I do that? I need to find a meaning on this. So I'm trying to justify it for myself. Like, what on earth? Why do I do this? I'm now dedicated. I'm doing about 12 hours. I just said, I do 12 hours a day on the building work, and the rest, I just sleep, I think, most of the time. Sleep, eat, and then it's building work. No, I do some of these Buddhist works, Buddhist things as well, and then or the monks things. Obviously, I do all the ceremonies and meditate if my mind allows me, and come here. This feels holiday to come here on the weekend, And so I've been trying to justify. I have to justify it myself. You can relate to that, right? If I'm busy all the time and I'm just wearing a high vis, I'm not wearing my monk's upper robe. I still wear my low robe, and underneath I have the rest of the monk's clothes. But then I need to justify for myself, why on earth do I do this? Is there any kind of meaning, purpose for this thing I'm doing, being a builder monk? Where does this lead to? So we were that's why I'm like throwing ideas with Ajahn Sadhguru, because he's good. He studies philosophy, or has studied, and he can look at things differently. And he said, look, there is whatever we do, there is like a ripple effect. And we can see that in this ripple effect in this universe. And it's true, if I put this effort, and I'm not the only one, obviously we have the team, and we have you as a donors donating and supporting the Buddhist society, and we all have this effect. But for me, obviously I have to justify my actions. When I do these things, it has a ripple effect on you. When you come to the meditation center, you will then benefit from that. And then my justification, even if my mind, my heart is not sometimes, it's not always there, but I just have to see it's almost like the bigger effect, and I can see that it will benefit others. And that's really is, honestly, it's the blessing of being a monk is that we do it out of our kind heart. If I would get paid, if people give me, if I could get paid as a salary from the Buddhist society, it's a weird thing. I would really be deprived from this effect, isn't it? You can quite clearly see it. If there was I've been now going from building project to building project. I first built the monk side, and then I went to Bodhinyana. We built the kutis there. Now I'm here building the retreat center. If I would become a paid employee of the Buddhist society, it's a weird thing. Somehow the effect of my work, or the effect what it does to my mind, I can clearly see that it would be less, because I would somehow, the sacrificing or being, doing that kind of thing makes it worthwhile. So for me, the biggest blessing on this one, at least I don't get paid. If I would get paid, it would really be horrible, because I don't think the pay would be enough. So I would be complaining that I don't get paid enough. And that's the joke between me and Ajahn Brahm all the time. I call Ajahn Brahm, and I said, how are you doing? And he said, I'm overworked, underpaid. And I said, yeah, I'm the same. I'm overworked, underpaid constantly. And that's the blessing of this thing. But so what of this unreliability, everything is unreliable, everything is constantly changing. Nothing is there for you to really take a refuge in anything. So this week we have a bit of a heated thing happening again in the building site. And I was thinking is this worth it? Is this worth of us doing this thing? And of course it is worth it, because we can take refuge on this path. We can take refuge on the Dhamma. And then I cannot really rely the world to be somehow the way that it would be, the world would be always the way I want it. That's not the world, what the world gives us. So we cannot rely that our health is always going to be there. We cannot rely that our mind is always going to be happy, content. It's not. We cannot rely on that. We cannot put our trust into even our minds, our bodies, the world, the universe. We cannot rely on that. It's ever changing. Why do we pay why can we take refuge, let's say, for the Dhamma? Dhamma would be the Buddha's teaching. Dhamma would be what the world is, however you want to translate the Dhamma. We can take refuge in the Dhamma because that is the path of liberation. That is the path which ultimately leads us away from this cycle of suffering. Because if something is always ever changing, never going to be satisfied, never going to give us ultimate satisfaction, it is this cycle of birth and death. And out of that cycle, we can find a certain kind of meanings on our day-to-day life. But ultimately, we have to disappear out of here. Ultimately, we still have to have the refuge on the Dhamma, which leads us into the end goal. If we don't have kind of end goal, if we don't have something there at the end, we just keep repeating this thing, and we're never wiser than what we are when we were born. If a life becomes a fun game where we just change clothes, where we finish all the job and then somehow that's going to be happiness. We get paid a lot. We get the most pleasure out of this world. If a life becomes a game like that, where relationships are the most important thing, we're losing the end goal. Those things should support our day-to-day life, the relationships, the enjoyment of our friends, the family and all that. But don't lose the end side. Don't lose the thing which is there at the end. And that is disappearing from the cycle of rebirth. Because you're not going to be reliably you're not going to be able to reliably find something where you can just rest here in this samsara. No matter where you get born. Even if you go to the heavens, because in Buddhism we do have those different realms, and sometimes people say, what are these Deva realms and all that? Deva realms are the places where somebody has a very, very good mind here, and then the mind, the kamma, whatever the mind state is being developed over the lifetime, takes them to the next destination. But there is not reliably, permanently, ever none changing place no matter where you go. So don't think it's your fault that the life is giving us misery. It is just the nature of the world. That is just Dhamma. And that's why we take refuge on the Dhamma of the Buddha's teaching, because we understand that is how the universe works. That's how the worlds work. So the path is the meaning. There is no other meaning to be found here. Get the path as your refuge. Take the path as your refuge. This practice we're doing, and see through the lens of the wisdom what we get here in the different Buddhist circles. Whether it's Buddhist Society Victoria, whether it's Ajahn Mudito, Ajahn Brahm, or read the word of the Buddha. That is the ultimate refuge. There is no other refuge. And it's interesting that I would have never thought I would talk this way, because it sounds religious, I must admit. It sounds like it's a religion like anything else. And 10 years ago, I would have never talked this way, that I would take a refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, or just the Dhamma. But these days, I can see that it has a purpose. It has something which keeps me going. It has something which gives me the purpose in life. So once you start seeing these things, that the Dhamma, what the Buddha was teaching, matches with the world, whatever you don't want to take, if you don't want to take a rebirth in the Buddhism, just leave it aside. Just say, well, I don't have to worry about it. If you don't want to believe that the Buddha came up with these ideas and that the Buddha was just a person, but he saw these things, leave it aside. You don't have to take this as a religion, but take it as a path where you can still walk this path. Take it as something where you know it works. And if something like this, like the Anicca, unreliable, ever-changing teaching matches your worldview, and you think, I can take that I can understand. I can see that my health, my mind, the world, the universe is out of control, is always changing, is not reliable. If you can take that as that seems to be true, and if that's what the Buddhism is teaching, I can take that. Take that. That's good enough. We don't need to take everything as a one go without biting. Question things, what you've been taught. There's a plenty of things if you start studying the Dhamma, which is really far out there. Just even if you read the sutras, there is really, even for me, even after all these years, I said, I'm not sure that really I can agree with that. But take what you can agree with. And take it as this is something I can use. And hopefully that will keep you going in this path. And the path becomes more and more meaningful. And then that becomes the meaning, the sole purpose of this whole thing we're doing here. And if you don't see the benefits now, let's say it doesn't really change my worldview that much, or it doesn't really apply to me now, don't worry, it will in some point. In some point, you will get sick. You will get old. Some point, your parents will get sick and old. They will pass away. Your loved ones. We're going to lose, perhaps we're not going to lose that many loved ones around us, but we will lose some of our loved ones. I don't think there's anybody in this room who never lost anybody. Maybe there's some young ones who haven't lost their grandparents yet even. But most of us, 99% of us, we lost somebody. Grandparents, other relatives, people we know. We can see that we cannot have refuge. We cannot reliably say that there is always going to be friends around us. And losing the friends and the loved ones, the family, that is a tremendous suffering. So because of the suffering, we know we need to practice now. Because of the unreliable nature of there's going to be wars, there's going to be climate change, there's going to be microplastics invading our brains more and more. Because of that, we need to practice now. Because even if you don't see so much suffering on your life now, just keep at it. And what does the practice look like for you? What could it mean for you? How can you practice? Once in a while, meditate. That really is a key thing about what we should be doing. Meditation. That's a really key thing. Come to once, hopefully there's going to be a retreat center happening in Newbury sometime in the future. Come to Newbury Meditation Retreat Center. We call it the Sanctuary of Stillness. Enjoy what we have. Come here once in a while to all these Dhamma teachings and meditation classes. enjoy those things. Take your precepts, the sila, take your moral guide, whatever your moral guide is. Like, let's say you cannot take the precept of not drinking alcohol yet, but take a certain kind of moral stance and say, well, this actually leads to a certain kind of happiness. So keep yourself within that framework. Alcohol itself is not inherently bad. It's what leads, what comes out of that. So we cannot just say, like, you are inherently bad person if you would drink alcohol. Alcohol itself leads to unmindful actions, and then it can escalate into the things. And that's what part of the reason why we would take, for example, the precept of refraining from alcohol. So take those precepts, think about them, and if they make sense, keep them the best of your abilities. Meditate, keep your precepts. Try to be a generous person, whatever that means, generosity in your life. Whether you're going to be here coming, we have a cleaning day coming now after this, hint, hint. If you want to be a generous person in that way, do the gardening on Sunday morning here. It's fun, mow the lawn. It leaves your mind in a happier state. Do things, generous things, which would leave your mind more positive. Do something nice to others. If you do something nice, it uplifts your mind. It's actually you who's benefiting from that. And even if it doesn't seem to have a purpose itself, think about the ripple effects it will have. If you clean the dhanasala here, if you do the lawn, mow the lawn, others will benefit that. And the more you do, the more of this kind of generous attitude you have, the bigger those kind of ripple effects it will have. Even though you don't really see, like, I don't know how this can affect. Don't worry about it so much. It will have an effect, whatever your generous actions are. All of these things have to be supporting us to get out of this cycle of rebirth. We are no different from the Buddha. We are no different from any of the enlightened ones what were before us. They all went this same path. There's nothing different from your own mind than all the people before you. These were just people like all of us. Remember, even when you read the sutras and there's these miracle stories, whatever, these were just people. One thing, that's what we have to have resolution, that even me, I'm not anything special. That is the point. You don't have to be special. You don't have to be somehow miracle person to get out of this samsara. This path works and is for all of us. We all struggle, and the struggle is the path. And the path is the meaning. There is no other refuge here. Take the path as the refuge. And that's the talk of Anicca. So now we go for question and answer.
Thank you, Ajahn. Now come to question time. We alternate the question between in the hall and online. We start with the floor. If you have a question, would you please raise your hand? We'll pass you the mic.
There's somebody there in the back. Now it's really confusing because you're sitting together, so I don't know who's who. I said, oh, you. you.
Good morning, Venerable Sir.
Morning.
I have a question on attachment, non-attachment, and how to follow the middle path.
Okay. Sure. Would you like to say more about that? Well, like non-attachment as into a family member, or like why would you ask this question?
Yes, attachment to things, attachment to people, attachment to happiness, sadness, and how do you become non-attached, and also how you come to middle path.
Yeah. Okay, that's quite interesting. You said that even attachment to sadness. Yeah, that is it's a really, actually, I don't know if you're meant to really say it, but it is actually, we are attached to suffering. We are attached to certain kind of like, this is who I am. I'm a person who's sacrificing, and you're attaching into that view. You are, I mean, I can see it with like, every time I get a picture from my sister, it's not about, she never sends her own picture. She always sending the kids. Like I'm getting the pictures of my nieces all the time and I was like, it's weird for me. It's like, why does she always send the pictures of her kids? Because mothers, it seems to be that the mothers do that. Mothers live through their children. They go into this kind of weird mindset of like forgetting themselves, and they just all the time see the children. But it's the same thing. We have this strong view is, for example, this is who I am. So how to lessen the attachment is to try to change your perception a little bit of, question it. Is this really true? Is this attachment I have towards my family, even though it's scary sometimes, or it's like, I probably shouldn't be doing that. But what if you try to look at it more with equanimity? Am I really attached to my family? What is this family I'm part of? Like, if it might be too difficult for a lot others, but for me, it's, for example, this thing where I've now living decades as apart from my family, and I'm like really, even physical distance is great. They almost feel like people I don't know so well. So what is this attachment? Sometimes we have to sort of try to see a bit clearly. These children, are they mine? Do they belong to me? Well, you know that they don't. I'm just giving an example. They have their own kamma. They are 5 khandhas. If a mother dies, there is no mother there dying. It is just the 5 khandhas, 5 things, 5 aggregates, whatever we would translate it in English, 5 things that make us as human coming together. And when the body passes away, those 5 khandhas, for those 5 things what support our mind and body, they just go on to their separate ways. There's nothing there to begin with. So how to lessen the attachment to your loved ones, to suffering, to material things. See what they truly are. What do they really give you? Are they more of a baggage, or do they actually support you some way? Material things, for example, if you would have a lot of expensive things around you, what happens? You need to protect them. The more valuable things you have in your house, the more you are worried that you have to lock the doors. Whereas my kuti, honestly, you can always walk in there. I'm not worried about somebody taking my pillow. I don't lock my door. Why? Because I don't have valuable things in my hut. Anybody can go there and I would not even know. Because if I would have valuable things in there, I would have to lock the door. I would be more worried about it. The things we sometimes think which are valuable things, we have to see them as a suffering. We have to see them as something which doesn't provide us that much. Whereas it's the opposite. It takes things away from us. We need to protect it. Sure, let's say you have material things, you can easily see that, okay, well, I get rid of it. But how do you lessen the attachment to your loved ones? That is a big thing. I mean, I can see it, that if I start thinking as let's say my mom and dad now old, and the father having Alzheimer's and all that thing, there is a suffering coming. But if I can just somehow little bit direct my mind that it's just 5 khandhas coming together and not just I'm intellectualizing, really start seeing it first in yourself, see how unreliable your own mind is, how it's just different thing, different time of the day, how it's changing all the time, and see it like, oh, well, it's same for my father, even though he has Alzheimer's now, that he's gone through the same thing. He's not in charge, even though as a child you think your parents are in charge. They're not. They're just going through the life as guesstimating as everybody else. So you try to change your perception. That's the only way. See what they give you, and if they don't give you happiness, you need to lessen that attachment.
Are there any other question?
We do the online one.
Yeah, thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
Just question online. So question from Las Vegas. It seems to me that pressure are not so present as I expected, and the pain's very much more painful. The more I look forward to anything, the less joy it brings when it comes. Please explain.
Well, the thing is, sometimes I'm not sure if I understood it correctly, but it's almost like, okay, the pleasure of expecting something, it's a greater pleasure than actually getting it. That's how it's like. Let's say you are going for a holiday, you dream about the holiday, and that the pleasure of dreaming about the holiday is greater. The best simile for me, and again it comes from Ajahn Brahm, is that whatever you have, you're expecting something. You dream about the next phone coming out, or whatever. You find pleasure in life. When you're dreaming about this, you can ask yourself, and then what? I get it, and then what? Try to take it to the end. I get this job, and then what? I finish my school, and then what? I have the best husband, girlfriend, and then what? We get the babies, and then what? And then what? And then what? Where does this end? It doesn't really end anywhere. There is no somehow it's going to be better future. This is as good as it gets. It's not going to be, I get a bit older and then I have money and then I have this, and then what? No, then you're going to have sickness and then you have other responsibilities, and it's not actually got any better. There is no better in the future. So ask whether this answers the question, but whatever it is you want to get in life, just try to take it to the end, and then what? And see if that helps. Yeah, is the microphone there? Okay.
Hi, Ajahn. So thank you so much for the talk. This question is related to, because I've heard of this thing around about 12 years ago, which was 2012, when we all think that 2012 will be the end of the world. And I remember one of my Buddhist teacher actually mentioned that anyone who believed in that would not have a good afterlife. when they're reborn. To what extent do you agree to this theory?
What was the thing? Because I didn't hear the beginning. So to believe in what?
So 2012.
Yeah.
I believe it was the end of the Mayan calendar, which to some.
Oh,
people
the
meant-
Mayan calendar, and he was saying that if you believe into that, you're not going to have a good rebirth. Okay, did I get it correctly? So if you believe that the Mayan calendar is coming to an end and the world is coming to an end, and the teacher was saying that if you believe into this, you won't get a good rebirth, is it?
Yes.
Why would the teacher say that? Okay, I always explain it this way. So in Buddhism, we have this idea of rebirth. Fair enough. Your rebirth is determined by your karma, not kind of one belief or faith in something. It's not the last mind moment. It does not work that way. There is some Buddhist circles where they say that is the really a big thing is what your last mind moment is, and that determines your rebirth. It does not work that way. If you do a work, if you work really hard and you put a lot of effort into it, it carries a lot more weight. If you do something which is easy to do, it's just quick, it does not carry the weight. So it's a little bit like that if I would, with this building project, if I would have just given some orders and get paid for that, and then I don't think it would carry that much weight. Whereas if I've been putting this effort for these few years now, it creates a lot. It has a lot of effort, so you're creating a lot of karma. And the vipaka, the result, what you get from there, it holds a lot of value. So I don't believe what your teacher would have said 12 years ago, that if you believe in the Mayan calendar, that would lead into bad rebirth. I cannot take it to the end of that way of thinking. He could have probably explained why, and he would have probably the only way I could say that if you live through that kind of idea and you keep reflecting it over and over again, and that becomes your life, then that view is where you get born. Not get born. That view is you, and that leads into the future rebirth. But why would that be bad destination? I don't know. Let's say you become a very, very kind person. You keep your sila and all that. Your destination is more likely to be like a Devaloka, for example. If you are a stingy person, if you are unkind person, if you harm animals and humans, do you think you're gonna get born as a deva in a good destination? No. So that's why we need to keep sila. That's why we need to practice and to at least try to get born as a human realm, and that's just, and most likely we do. But then it doesn't sort of like miracles. You cannot just ask forgiveness for everything you've done. You always carry your weight with you wherever you go.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you, Ajahn. Question from online. Ajahn, I don't want to discourage you from sacrifice in the building works.
Almost done. See, my sacrificial is coming to an end. But I'll tell you a story. If somebody asks forgiveness, what's the worst thing you can say? I forgive you, but. Don't say that. Somebody asks you forgiveness, you say, I forgive you. You know, if you say but, what does the but mean? You're trying to change them. That's what you're trying to do. You're not forgiving, you're trying to change them. Leave the buts out. Okay, so I'm sacrificing. Let's leave the but out. Okay, so the next part. What's the question?
So I have a doubt. In Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha say many times, do not relish working as well as speaking, eating, sleeping, etc. So hearing you and Ajahn Brahm overwork seems a bit contradict. I don't think you and Ajahn Brahm are going to against the Dhamma, but what did Buddha refer to with do not relish work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a key thing there, and I'm not taking offense here, definitely not. With that Anguttara Nikaya, and it's mentioned many places that, don't, as a monastic, they warn, don't get sort of engrossed with don't relish work, don't think this is what you should be doing as a monk, that it becomes the sole purpose of this. Do I want to say that? We're not bodhisattvas. So we're not here to sacrifice our own happiness. We're not here to sacrificing doesn't lead you out of the samsara. That's what it means. Don't think that that is the purpose of this practice. The practice, but the practice can support your practice. Let's say I mean, you have to take somebody higher than me. So let's take Ajahn Brahm, who's giving talks everywhere. He's traveling a lot. That's what he means by overworked, underpaid. He's actually helping others on this. He knows how to go back to his cave, close the door, meditate. He gets a lot of happiness from the help from helping of others, but you have to use it. Don't just create good karma, use it. Use the things you have done. If you don't know how to use it, you are wasting your time. So for me, of building work, I really need to find a way to use these good things I've done it. So that's why it's part of the reason why I need to justify it. I need to talk about it with, that's why I brought it to Ajahn Saro last night. What do you think? How can I reflect this? How do I find that it supports my practice, which is meditation, which is getting into deep meditations, which then I get the wisdom out of it. By itself, it doesn't carry the weight. I need to use it. I need to use the good things I've done. Otherwise, you're just you're like a rich person who's got money in the bank, but you are stingy. You cannot use it. Enjoy the wealth. You need to enjoy the good things you've done. Why do we have things like reflection? Reflect your generosity, reflect on the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Sila. Let's say Sila is nice. Reflect on your kind person. You reflect that you are a person who's a virtuous person, because that is part of the practice. So do those things. Do good things. Be a generous person, but reflect on it. And from reflection, your mind gets uplifted. From uplifted mind becomes calm. From calm mind, you go to a deep meditation. From deep meditation, you get wisdom. That's the way. That's the path. If I'm just sitting on my bum, on my kuti all the time, perhaps I would have got further, but I don't know. So this is my path. This is where I am. This is what just happened to be, where I landed on this. I try to make the best of this. That's the path. And obviously, we're blessed to have good teachers who understand what it means. And we have blessed to that we don't go too much of the work and you think that's a meaning, and we don't go too much into the staying by your solitude and not doing anything. We need to find a balance, but we need to use those things we do.
Thank you, Ajahn. Any more questions from the floor?
You want to take a microphone so others hear you?
Yeah. Who's it?
Terry here in the front, sitting on the cushion.
Hello?
So what you've done at the building, the new building,
Yes.
on the way here, I was listening to attachment. So whatever you've done, as long as you're providing the service to the whole community,
Yeah.
and you're not wanting it too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or, yeah, like me, at the moment, I just want to study Dhamma because it's so yummy. It's so.
That's a nice way
feel
of putting it.
Yeah. But if I want it too much, isn't that attachment and it becomes my suffering?
I wouldn't be too worried about that. If a Dhamma becomes yummy, I would encourage that. The thing is, but definitely, if the attachments are more like, yes, I would start controlling because I put a lot of effort. Others, I then become owner of this process. So don't own things like that. But Dhamma, you cannot really own it because the more you study it, you realize that it's just it's not yours, and it supports you. Obviously, in some point, you will have to leave it. It's like a raft, which is helps you across the path, the stream, and then you let it go. I mean, it's automatic, but it becomes like again something you are attached to it, but for be attached to that for your dear life because you're still in the water, so you need that raft. So, but until then, yes, be attached to that, enjoy it, and that's very good. But it's definitely something. Like I remember a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, we built the monks side in Newbury, and I felt I had to go because I started to feel that I would, if something the others mistreated the buildings or something, I would get angry because and not that they do, but I was just in my mind, I saw the danger. I see the danger that I become owner. Yeah. I'm somehow put this effort. And I guess that would go very, very deep with everything. It's like you start controlling your children or you just like, I'm this. And that's the reason I could see, slightly off topic, but I could see that there would be ghosts in this world because they cannot let go, for example, their wealth, or it's like even there's like a family house. I can see it coming from a farm where it's been in generations in our family, and it's like if I would go there and there would be another family in the family farm, and I was like, it would be so weird. So I could see that anything it become like attachment, and you cannot leave this world, and that's what create coasts. But yeah, Dhamma, that's nothing to be worried about. Be attached to it. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Just last question for online. Are you sure the past is the meaning of life?
Not the past, but path. Am I sure? Well,
isn't meaning about ending suffering and achieving Nibbana?
Okay.
Noble truth or purpose?
I thought that is the path. You cannot just sort of go to the end goal and then it's like, hey, how do I get here? Okay, well, I'm at the end, so the path is to end the suffering, and that is the goal, obviously, but the path is to get there. That's what I would say.